Drive. Fast. Please? I can't lose him. The words leave her mouth before she even sees his face, before she notices the quiet hum of a luxury engine instead of the usual rattle of a rideshare car, before she realizes the man behind the wheel isn't who she thinks he is, and by the time Sophia Bennett slams the door shut and clutches the back of the seat like it's the only thing holding her together, it's already too late to take it back. Rain lashes against the windshield in sharp, restless streaks, the kind that turn city lights into blurred gold and red smears, the kind that makes everything feel urgent, unstable, like the world is slipping just a little out of control, and Sophia's breath comes in short bursts as she leans forward, voice shaking but determined. Please, the hospital on 5th and Main, as fast as you can. For a split second, Alexander Cole says nothing, his hand still resting lightly on the steering wheel, his tailored sleeve catching a flicker of passing streetlight, his watch worth more than most people's monthly rent glinting in the dark, and he studies her through the rearview mirror, really studies her, the soaked jacket clinging to her shoulders, the strands of hair stuck to her cheeks, the fear in her eyes that doesn't look staged or exaggerated or performative, just real, painfully real. He could correct her. He could tell her she's in the wrong car, that this isn't a ride share, that he isn't a driver waiting for the next fare. He could ask her to get out. But something in the way her fingers tremble, in the way she whispers under her breath like a prayer, just hold on, please just hold on, makes him hesitate, makes him shift his gaze forward instead, and without another word, he presses the accelerator. The car glides into motion, smooth and powerful, cutting through the rain-slick streets as if the storm doesn't matter, as if nothing matters except the destination she's given him, and Sophia exhales a shaky breath, not even noticing how different this ride feels, how quiet, how controlled, how unlike the chaotic rush of a normal driver weaving through traffic. I'll pay extra, she adds quickly, her voice cracking, I need to get there. Alexander's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly, and for a moment, something unreadable crosses his expression, something between disbelief and something softer, something he hasn't felt in a long time, and he nods once even though she can't see him. You'll get there. Outside, the city stretches endlessly, neon reflections shimmering across wet pavement, headlights streaking past like fleeting moments, and inside the car, time feels suspended, heavy, charged, as Sophia presses her forehead against the cool glass, eyes squeezed shut, whispering again, I can't lose him, he's all I have. The words hang in the air, fragile and raw, and Alexander's grip on the wheel tightens just slightly, because for the first time in a long time, someone isn't looking at him like a name, a title, a net worth. They're not calculating, not pretending, not trying to impress or manipulate. She doesn't even know who he is, and somehow that makes every word she says feel more honest than anything he's heard in years. A red light looms ahead, glowing against the rain, and without hesitation, he slows just enough before turning smoothly onto a quieter street, choosing a faster route only someone who knows the city this well would take, and Sophia finally looks up, confusion flickering for a second at how quickly they're moving, at how effortlessly he navigates, but she pushes it aside, because nothing matters except the hospital, except the ticking clock in her chest, except the image she can't shake of a small hospital bed and a tiny hand slipping from hers. Thank you, she whispers, barely audible, and for a moment, Alexander doesn't respond, because he's not sure what to do with that kind of gratitude, not when it's given so freely, not when it's meant for someone she thinks he is, not who he actually is, and yet he keeps driving, faster now, more focused, as the storm rages outside and something quiet but undeniable begins to shift inside him. Something set in motion by a mistake that neither of them understands yet, a mistake that is about to change both their lives in ways neither of them could possibly imagine. The car comes to a smooth stop beneath the bright white glow of the emergency entrance, the rain still falling hard enough to blur the glass doors ahead, and before the engine even fully settles into silence, Sophia is already reaching for the handle, her movements rushed, unsteady, like every second she spends inside this car is a second too long. Thank you, her voice catches, breath uneven, and she fumbles with her bag, fingers searching for something that is not there, because there is nothing left. No cash, no spare card, nothing but a worn wallet and a folded hospital paper already creased from being opened too many times, and panic flashes across her face for a different reason now. I will pay you, I promise, I do not have it right now, but I will, I swear, she blurts out, the words tumbling over each other, desperate and honest and completely unfiltered, and for a brief moment, Alexander studies her again through the mirror, really looks this time at the way her shoulders are trembling, the way her eyes are already drifting toward the entrance like she is being pulled there by something stronger than fear, and he shakes his head slightly, voice calm, steady, go. And that is all he says, no demand, no expectation, just that single word, and Sophia freezes for half a second, surprised, confused, but she does not argue, she cannot afford to argue, so she nods quickly. Thank you, she whispers again, softer this time, like the words matter more than anything she could have given him, and then she is gone, disappearing into the harsh light of the hospital, swallowed by automatic doors that close behind her with a quiet finality. Inside, the air is different, too bright, too clean, filled with the low hum of machines and distant voices, and Sophia moves fast, almost running, her shoes squeaking faintly against polished floors as she clutches the paper in her hand, scanning signs, searching, her heart pounding louder than anything around her, until she finally reaches the desk, breathless. I am here for Noah Bennett, she says, voice shaking, and the nurse looks up, recognition flickering, then gestures down the hall. And Sophia does not wait for anything else, she is already moving again. Turning the corner, pushing through another set of doors, and when she sees him, small against the white sheets, a fragile shape surrounded by quiet machines, something inside her finally breaks, not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet collapse in her chest as she rushes to his side, taking his hand, warm but still. Hey, I am here, she whispers, brushing damp hair from his forehead, her voice softening in a way it had not in the car. In a way that feels like the only truth she has left. Outside, the rain continues to fall, steady and relentless, but Alexander has not driven away, not yet. He remains parked just beyond the entrance, the engine idling low, his hands resting lightly on the wheel as he watches the doors she disappeared through, something unfamiliar settling in his chest, not curiosity exactly, not obligation, something quieter, heavier, and he exhales slowly, leaning back for a moment as if considering leaving, returning to the life that makes sense, the schedule. Waiting for him, the meetings, the expectations, the version of himself that does not stop for strangers who mistake him for something he is not, but instead, his gaze shifts to the passenger seat where a small, folded paper lies, something she must have dropped in her rush, and he reaches over, picking it up, unfolding it carefully, his eye scanning the numbers, the total printed at the bottom, a number that would mean nothing to him and everything to her. And beneath it, a handwritten note. In hurried ink, please give us one more chance, and something about that line lingers longer than it should, something about the way it is not addressed to anyone specific, just a quiet plea to the world itself, and Alexander closes the paper slowly, his expression unreadable but changed in a way even he does not fully understand yet, because for the first time in a long time, this is not about a deal, not about profit, not about strategy. It is about a moment, a mistake, a woman who trusted. A stranger without knowing who he was, and as the rain continues to fall against the windshield, he does not drive away. Time stretches in a strange, quiet way inside the hospital room, like the world outside has been muted, and Sophia does not notice how long she has been sitting there, her hand wrapped around Noah's smaller one, her thumb brushing gently over his knuckles as if the motion alone could keep him anchored, her voice low and steady even though everything inside her feels anything but. You scared me, you know that, buddy, she murmurs, leaning closer, her forehead almost touching his, and for a moment she closes her eyes, breathing him in, grounding herself in something real. Something that cannot be taken away if she just holds on tight enough, while machines hum softly in the background, steady, consistent, a rhythm she clings to like reassurance. Down the hall, footsteps echo, nurses move in and out of rooms, life continuing in quiet routines, and somewhere beyond those walls, the rain finally begins to ease, the storm softening into a light drizzle that taps gently against the windows, but inside the parked car outside, Alexander is still there, the folded bill resting in his hand like it weighs more than paper should, his thumb tracing the edge absent-mindedly as he stares at the hospital entrance, his mind replaying the last hour in fragments, her voice, her urgency, the way she said I cannot lose him as if that single sentence held her entire world together. He has built his life on decisions made quickly, efficiently, without hesitation, numbers calculated, risks measured, outcomes predicted, but this does not fit into any of those systems. There is no clear return, no strategy, no boardroom logic, just a feeling he cannot quite name, and it lingers, persistent, until he exhales slowly and reaches for his phone, his movements deliberate now, purposeful in a different way. And he dials a number he rarely uses for anything personal. "I need a favor," he says when the call connects, his voice calm, controlled, but there is something underneath it, something quieter. "Pull the records for a patient," Noah Bennett admitted tonight at Westbridge. He pauses briefly, eyes flicking back to the glowing entrance and the outstanding balance on the account. There is a moment of silence on the other end, then a response, quick, efficient. And Alexander listens, his expression unreadable as the details come through, numbers, timelines, procedures, each piece adding weight to what he already knows without needing confirmation. And when the call ends, he does not hesitate this time. "Take care of it," he adds simply, and the line goes quiet again, the instruction clear, no further explanation needed. Back inside, Sophia has not moved from Noah's side, her fingers still intertwined with his, her eyes fixed on the small rise and fall of his chest, and when a doctor finally steps in, she straightens slightly, hope and fear colliding in her expression, listening carefully as he speaks, words about observation, about stability, about the next steps, and she nods, absorbing every detail, every instruction, because she has no choice but to stay strong, to keep going, even when the weight of everything presses down on her, and when the doctor leaves, she exhales slowly, her shoulders dropping just a fraction as relief slips in, fragile but real. Outside, Alexander finally turns off the engine, the sudden quiet filling the space around him, and for a moment he just sits there, hands resting loosely in his lap, the storm now nothing more than a memory on the windshield, and he looks down at the folded paper one more time before slipping it carefully into the inner pocket of his jacket, not as something to discard, but as something to keep, something that, for reasons he does not fully understand yet, feels like the beginning of something he cannot walk away from. And as he steps out of the car, the cool night air hits him gently, the city calmer now, quieter, and for the first time in a long time, Alexander Cole walks toward something without knowing exactly where it will lead, only that he is no longer willing to ignore it. Morning arrives slowly, pale sunlight filtering through the tall hospital windows, soft and almost hesitant as if it does not want to disturb the fragile peace inside the room, and Sophia has not slept, not really, her body curled awkwardly in the chair beside Noah's bed, her hand still resting over his like it had been all night, fingers loosely intertwined as though letting go even for a second might change something, and when her eyes finally open, it takes her a moment to remember where she is, the quiet hum of machines bringing everything back in an instant, sharp and real, and she straightens quickly, brushing her hair back, checking him first before anything else, relief washing over her in a quiet wave when she sees the steady rhythm of his breathing unchanged. A soft knock comes at the door, and she turns, expecting another nurse, another routine check, but instead a woman in a crisp uniform steps inside holding a tablet, her expression polite but different, more formal. "Ms. Bennett," she asks, and Sophia nods, confusion flickering across her face as she pushes herself to stand, her legs stiff from hours of sitting. "Yes," she replies cautiously, and the woman offers a small, reassuring smile before continuing, "I just wanted to let you know that your son's account has been updated this morning." She pauses briefly, glancing down at the screen, the outstanding balance has been taken care of. For a second, the words do not make sense, they do not connect, and Sophia blinks, certain she must have misunderstood. "I am sorry, what?" she asks, her voice barely above a whisper, and the woman repeats it gently, as if she has said this before but still recognizes the weight of it. "The bill has been fully covered, you will not need to worry about any remaining payments related to his current care." The room feels suddenly too still, too quiet, and Sophia shakes her head instinctively, a small, disbelieving laugh escaping her as she takes a step back. "No, that is not possible. There must be a mistake," she says quickly, her mind racing, trying to find a logical explanation, because things like this do not just happen, not to her, not to someone who has been counting every dollar, stretching every paycheck, making impossible choices for months, and the woman's expression softens slightly. But her tone remains certain. "There is no mistake, Ms. Bennett. The payment was processed early this morning by a private party who asked to remain anonymous." Anonymous. The word lingers in the air, heavy and unfamiliar, and Sophia's thoughts scatter, trying to piece together who, how, why, but there is no one, no family with money, no hidden support waiting in the background, nothing that explains this, and for a brief moment, her gaze drifts toward the window, toward the memory of last night, the rain, the car, the quiet man who said almost nothing but got her there faster than she thought possible, and something flickers in her chest, uncertain but impossible to ignore. "Do you know who it was?" she asks softly, almost afraid of the answer, and the woman shakes her head. "I am sorry, I do not have that information," she replies, then offers a final reassuring nod before stepping back toward the door, leaving Sophia alone again with more questions than answers. She stands there for a long moment, unmoving, her eyes slowly returning to Noah, to the small rise and fall of his chest, and something inside her shifts, not relief exactly, not yet, but something close, something fragile and unfamiliar, like hope trying to find its way back after being pushed aside for too long, and she exhales slowly, sitting back down beside him, her fingers finding his hand again, holding on just a little tighter this time. Across the hall, unnoticed, a man stands for a brief moment before turning away, his presence quiet, almost invisible among the morning activity, his gaze lingering just long enough to confirm what he needed to see, and then he walks down the corridor without stopping, without announcing himself, blending into the rhythm of the hospital as if he belongs there, as if he is just another visitor, but the truth moves with him. Silent and deliberate, carried in the calm certainty of a decision already made, one that has set something irreversible into motion. The hours pass quietly, measured not by clocks but by small changes, by the steady rhythm of Noah's breathing, by the occasional check from nurses, by the way the light shifts across the floor from morning to late afternoon, and Sophia remains by his side through all of it, her body exhausted but her mind unable to rest, circling the same question over and over again: who would do something like that and why? Because kindness like this feels too big, too sudden, too personal to come from nowhere, and every time she closes her eyes, she sees flashes of the night before, the rain, the silence in the car, the man's calm voice, the way he said "you will get there," like it was a promise he intended to keep. By early evening, Noah stirs slightly, a small movement that pulls Sophia instantly forward, her heart skipping as she leans closer. Hey, I am right here," she whispers, her voice soft but full of emotion she has been holding back for hours, and when his eyes flutter open just a little, unfocused but aware enough to recognize her, relief floods through her so quickly it almost makes her dizzy, and she lets out a quiet laugh that breaks halfway into tears she does not try to hide this time. "You scared me," she murmurs, brushing her fingers gently through his hair, and he manages the faintest smile, weak but real, and in that moment, nothing else matters, not the bills, not the uncertainty, not the questions that still linger, just this, just him, just the fact that he is here. Later, when he drifts back to sleep, calmer now, stronger, Sophia finally steps out into the hallway, her legs carrying her almost automatically toward the small waiting area, and she sinks into a chair, her hands resting loosely in her lap as she stares ahead, her mind quieter for the first time since last night but not empty, because the question still remains, pressing gently at the edges of her thoughts, and she reaches into her pocket, pulling out her wallet, opening it slowly as if expecting something to have changed, but it is the same, worn edges, old receipts, nothing new, nothing that explains anything, and yet the feeling persists, that something shifted, something started the moment she stepped into that car. At the same time, several floors above, in a private office overlooking the city, Alexander stands by the window, the skyline stretching out in front of him in clean lines and fading light, his reflection faintly visible in the glass, sharp suit, composed posture, everything exactly as it should be, exactly as it always has been, and yet his attention is not on the city, not on the messages waiting on his phone, not on the schedule his assistant has already sent twice. It is somewhere else entirely, grounded in a hospital room he has already left behind, in a quiet moment he cannot quite let go of, and when his assistant finally steps in, tablet in hand, listing meetings, deadlines, expectations, he listens for a moment before raising a hand slightly, stopping her mid-sentence, something he rarely does, and she pauses, surprised, waiting, and he turns just enough to meet her eyes, his voice calm but firm. "Clear my evening," he says, and she hesitates for a fraction of a second before nodding, adjusting quickly, because she has learned not to question decisions like that, not when they are delivered in that tone. Back downstairs, Sophia rises slowly from her seat, a quiet determination settling into her chest now that the initial shock has passed, because whoever did this, whatever the reason, she cannot just accept it without knowing, without understanding, and as she walks back toward Noah's room, her steps steadier now, her thoughts more focused, she makes a silent decision, one that feels small but important, that she will find out the truth, Even if it takes time, even if it leads her back to a stranger she only knew for a few minutes in the middle of a storm, because something about that moment does not feel finished yet. It feels like the beginning of something she has not fully seen, and as the evening settles quietly around her, she does not realize just how right she is. The next morning arrives with a quieter kind of light, softer, steadier, and for the first time since everything began, Sophia feels like she can breathe without forcing it, like the tight grip around her chest has loosened just enough to let something else in, something that feels almost like normal. And Noah is sitting up now, still weak but smiling more, his voice small but curious as he asks questions about where he is and why she looks so tired. And she laughs gently, brushing it off, telling him he just needed a little extra care, that everything is going to be okay, even though part of her is still catching up to that reality herself. Later that day, after speaking with the doctor and hearing words like stable and recovering, words she holds onto like something solid, she steps out again, this time not out of urgency but with intention, her mind clear, focused on the one thing she cannot let go, and she walks to the billing desk, her steps steady, her expression polite but determined. "Hi, I was told my son's account was covered by someone," she begins, her voice calm but carrying an edge of urgency underneath. "I need to know if there is any way to find out who made that payment." The woman behind the desk hesitates, fingers pausing over the keyboard, clearly used to questions but not always able to answer them, and she gives a small, apologetic smile. "I understand why you would want to know, but if the donor requested anonymity, we are not allowed to disclose their identity," she explains gently, and Sophia nods slowly, absorbing that, but not stepping back. "Not yet. Is there anything you can tell me?" she asks, her voice softer now, not demanding, just hoping, and the woman considers for a moment before glancing at the screen again, lowering her voice slightly as if offering something small but meaningful. "All I can say is that the payment was processed directly through a private account, not insurance, not a foundation, and it was done immediately, without hesitation." She pauses, then adds, "Whoever it was, they knew exactly what they were doing." Sophia thanks her quietly, stepping away from the desk, her thoughts turning over the information again and again. Private account, immediate, intentional, and suddenly the memory of last night feels sharper, clearer, like a piece she had not fully examined before. The smoothness of the ride, the silence, the way he never questioned anything, the way he simply acted, and her steps slow as she reaches the lobby, her gaze drifting toward the entrance doors as if expecting to see him there again. Though she knows that is unlikely, that people like that do not just wait around, do not linger, they move on, they disappear back into lives far removed from hers. At the same time, across the city, Alexander sits at a long conference table, surrounded by polished surfaces and quiet efficiency, voices discussing projections, strategies, numbers that climb into millions without a second thought, and he listens, nods, responds when necessary, his presence commanding as always, but there is a distance in his focus, a slight delay before he speaks, as if part of him is elsewhere, and when the meeting finally pauses, his phone lights up briefly with a notification, a confirmation from the hospital system. A simple line stating that the account has been cleared and the patient is stable, and he reads it once, then again, his expression unchanged to anyone watching, but something settles inside him, something quiet but certain, like a decision that has already begun to take shape beyond this one moment. Back at the hospital, Sophia stands near the entrance for a long moment, watching people come and go, each one wrapped in their own story, their own urgency, their own lives, and she realizes something then, something simple but powerful, that whoever helped her did not do it for recognition, did not stay to be thanked, did not even leave a name, and that means finding him will not be easy, but it does not mean it is impossible. And as she takes a slow breath, stepping outside into the cool afternoon air, her eye scanning the street almost instinctively, she makes another quiet promise to herself, that she will not let this remain a mystery, not because she owes him something, but because something about that moment, that mistake, feels unfinished, like a story that has not reached its end yet, and this time, she is ready to follow it wherever it leads. Days pass in a rhythm that feels almost unreal compared to the chaos that started it all, each morning bringing a little more strength back to Noah, each step he takes down the hospital hallway slow but steady, his small hand gripping Sophia's as if he is reminding her that he is still here, still fighting, and she smiles more now, softer, lighter, though the question that has been following her since that night has not faded, it has only grown clearer, sharper, more defined with every detail. She replays in her mind, until it becomes impossible to ignore any longer. On the third day, when the doctor finally says the word discharge, something inside her settles in a way she has not felt in a long time, a quiet sense of relief mixed with gratitude so deep it almost feels overwhelming, and as she signs the final papers, her eyes drift once more toward the billing section, toward the place where everything changed without explanation, and she hesitates for just a moment before walking over again, not expecting a different answer but unable to stop herself from trying one more time. The same woman looks up, recognizing her now, offering a small knowing smile, and Sophia leans in slightly, lowering her voice. "I know you said you cannot tell me who paid, but is there anything at all I missed, anything that might help me understand?" she asks, and the woman studies her for a second before glancing around, then back at the screen, her fingers tapping lightly as if searching for something she should not say but chooses to anyway. "The payment was authorized under a corporate account before being transferred privately," she says quietly. "That kind of access is not common," she adds, and Sophia's breath catches just slightly. Corporate, the word echoing in her mind as pieces begin to shift into place, not fully clear yet but no longer scattered, and she nods slowly. "Thank you," she whispers, stepping back, her thoughts already racing ahead. Outside, the afternoon air feels different, warmer, calmer, and as Sophia helps Noah into the passenger seat of a modest sedan borrowed from a friend, she pauses for a moment, her hand resting on the car door as she looks out at the street, remembering the sleek black vehicle from that night, the way it moved so effortlessly, the way it did not feel like something meant for ride-sharing at all, and suddenly the realization lands with a quiet certainty, not loud, not dramatic, just clear: the man was never a driver. Across the city, Alexander stands in a spacious office lined with glass and steel, the skyline stretching endlessly beyond him, his phone pressed to his ear as voices discuss expansion plans, contracts, decisions that will shape entire industries, and he responds as expected, measured, precise, his tone carrying authority that does not need to be asserted. But as the call ends, he sets the phone down slowly, his reflection staring back at him from the window, composed, controlled, exactly who the world expects him to be, and yet behind that reflection, something else lingers, something that does not belong to boardrooms or negotiations, something that began the moment a stranger stepped into his car and trusted him without knowing his name. Back on the street, Sophia slides into the driver's seat, her hands resting on the wheel for a moment before she starts the engine, her mind no longer uncertain but searching with purpose now, and as she pulls away from the hospital, her eyes scan the passing buildings with a new awareness, noticing details she would have ignored before: office towers, company logos, places she has never stepped into but suddenly feels connected to in a way she cannot explain, because the truth is no longer hidden behind confusion, it is just out of reach, waiting to be found, and as Noah speaks softly beside her, asking if they can stop for ice cream on the way home, she smiles, her voice gentle but filled with something stronger now. "Of course we can," she says, and as the car moves forward into the city, she makes a quiet decision that this story, whatever it is not over yet, not for her, not for the man who chose to remain unseen. And the next time she sees him, she will not mistake him for someone else. The city moves the same way it always has, fast and indifferent, but for Sophia, everything feels slightly different now, sharper, more intentional, like she is finally seeing details that used to blur together, and over the next few days, she begins to follow a quiet instinct she cannot ignore, piecing together fragments from that night, the smooth ride, the silence, the confidence in every turn, and most of all, the feeling that the man behind the wheel belonged to a world far beyond ordinary drivers, and it leads her somewhere she never expected to go. It starts with a name she overhears at a small diner where she works part-time, a conversation between two customers in suits discussing a major company, a CEO known for making fast decisions, for moving quietly but decisively, a name that lingers just long enough to catch her attention, Alexander Cole, and something about it feels familiar, not because she has heard it before, but because it fits, because it connects to the way that night felt, controlled, certain, deliberate. And later that evening, when Noah is resting and the apartment is finally quiet, she searches it on her phone, her heart beating just a little faster as images appear, headlines, interviews, photographs of a man in a tailored suit, standing in glass towers, shaking hands with people who look like they belong in a completely different world, and she freezes for a moment, staring at the screen, because even though the lighting is different, the expression more composed, she recognizes him instantly, the same eyes, the same calm presence, the same man who said almost nothing while driving her through the storm. The realization settles slowly, not with shock but with clarity, and she leans back slightly, her breath steady but deeper now, because this changes everything, not just who he is, but what his actions mean, and for a moment, doubt creeps in, quiet but persistent. Was it really kindness, or was it something else, something easier for someone like him, just another decision? Another transaction that means nothing in his world but everything in hers, and she shakes her head almost immediately, rejecting that thought, because it does not match what she felt. It does not match the way he looked at her, the way he listened without interruption, the way he simply acted without asking for anything in return. The next morning, she makes a decision that feels both impossible and completely necessary, and standing in front of a towering glass building that reflects the sky like a mirror, she hesitates for only a second before stepping inside. The polished floors and quiet efficiency surrounding her instantly, every detail designed to feel controlled, powerful, distant, and for a brief moment, she feels out of place, her simple clothes, her cautious steps. But she does not turn back, because this is not about belonging, it is about truth. At the front desk, she clears her throat softly, her voice steady. Despite the weight behind it, "I need to speak with Alexander Cole," she says, and the receptionist looks up, surprised but professional, offering a polite smile that does not quite reach her eyes. "Do you have an appointment?" she asks, and Sophia shakes her head. "No, but he knows me," she replies, the words sounding uncertain even as she says them, and the receptionist pauses, clearly unconvinced, but before she can respond, a familiar voice cuts through the space, calm, controlled, unmistakable. "It is all right," and Sophia turns instantly, her heart skipping as she sees him walking toward them, dressed in the same kind of tailored suit she saw online, every detail precise, every movement confident, and yet his eyes, when they meet hers, carry something else entirely, something quieter, something that recognizes the moment just as clearly as she does, and for a second, neither of them speaks, the truth standing between them without needing to be explained, until Sophia finally takes a small step forward, her voice soft but unwavering. "You are not a driver," and Alexander holds her gaze, the faintest hint of something almost like a smile touching his expression as he replies, "No, I am not." The space between them feels different now, no longer uncertain but charged with something real, something that cannot be undone, and for a moment Sophia just stands there, taking him in, not the man from the photographs or the headlines, but the one she met that night, the one who drove through the storm without asking questions, the one who changed everything without leaving a name. And when she finally speaks, her voice is steady but layered with emotion that has been building since the moment she stepped into his car. "You paid for my son's treatment," she says quietly, not a question, just the truth placed carefully between them, and Alexander does not deny it, does not deflect, he simply nods once, his expression calm but his eyes holding hers in a way that feels more honest than anything he could say. "Yes," he answers, just as simply, and the word lands heavier than expected, not because of what it means financially, but because of what it reveals about him. Sophia exhales slowly, her shoulders lowering just slightly, and for a second she looks away, gathering her thoughts, because this is not just gratitude, it is confusion, it is vulnerability, it is the weight of being seen in a moment she never intended anyone to witness, and when she looks back at him, there is a quiet strength in her voice now. "Why?" she asks, and it is not accusatory, not defensive, just honest. And Alexander pauses for a brief moment, not because he does not have an answer, but because the truth is not something he usually explains, not like this, not to someone who is looking at him without expectation or agenda, and he steps a little closer, lowering his voice just enough to make the moment feel more personal. "Because you asked me to drive," he says, and there is the faintest trace of something almost like a smile in his expression, "and you trusted me." The simplicity of it catches her off guard, and for a second she does not know how to respond, because she had prepared herself for something more complicated, something transactional, something that would make it easier to place him back into the world she thought he belonged to. But this is not that, this is something she cannot easily categorize, and she lets out a quiet breath, her eyes softening just slightly as she studies him again, this time without the barrier of misunderstanding. "You should have told me," she says after a moment, her voice gentler now but still carrying a trace of something unresolved, and Alexander nods, accepting that without resistance. "I should have," he agrees, and there is no excuse in his tone, no attempt to justify it, just acknowledgement, and that honesty shifts something between them, subtle but important. Around them, the office continues as if nothing has changed, people moving, conversations happening, but in this small space, time feels slower, more intentional, and Sophia takes a step back, not to leave but to breathe, to process, her mind catching up to everything her heart is already beginning to understand, and she glances down briefly before meeting his gaze again. "I do not need your money," she says quietly, not as rejection but as clarity, and Alexander inclines his head slightly. "I know," he replies, and there is respect in the way he says it, something that acknowledges her without diminishing her, and for the first time since she walked in, a small, genuine smile touches her lips, faint but real. There is a pause then, not awkward but open, like something new is being built in the silence, and after a moment, Alexander speaks again, his tone shifting just slightly, less formal, more human. "Your son, is he okay?" he asks, and the question feels different from anything else that has been said, because it is not about the past, it is about the present, about what matters most to her, and Sophia nods, her expression softening fully now. "He is getting better," she answers, and there is relief in her voice that she no longer tries to hide, and something in Alexander's posture relaxes almost imperceptibly, like that answer means more to him than he expected. Another quiet moment passes before he adds, almost carefully, "I am glad you got there in time," and the words echo something from that night, something that brings everything full circle, and Sophia lets out a small breath, her eyes holding his as she responds, "So am I," and this time, the silence that follows is not uncertain, it is full, steady, like a beginning neither of them planned but both of them understand, and as she turns to leave, pausing briefly at the door, she glances back at him one more time, her voice soft but clear, "Next time I will not sit in the back seat," and Alexander's expression shifts, that faint smile returning, warmer now, as he replies, "Next time I will not let you," and as she steps out into the city again, the world feels the same, but something inside it has changed, something set in motion by a mistake that turned out to be anything but one.